Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever considered the uh, the quiet revolutions, maybe, and the seismic shifts that really define nations? I
Hmm.
mean, not just what's in today's headlines, but the deep underlying currents shaping governance, leadership, laws, policies over time.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about when we say political development.
And it's fascinating because these aren't just like one-off incidents. They're evolving changes, processes.
Right.
They can stem from anything, really. A
Yeah.
key election, a major reform, social movements bubbling up, or even big international influences.
Okay.
And grasping these developments is just fundamental to understanding how societies actually transform, how power gets distributed, and how core ideas like justice, freedom, order,
Yeah.
how they evolve in practice.
And that's exactly our mission in this deep dive. We've got these comprehensive sources you provided,
Yeah.
and we're aiming to take a shortcut, essentially, to getting truly well-informed on this crucial topic. We'll explore the major historical moments, the core drivers behind change, the global patterns playing out right now,
Yeah, the big picture.
and even gaze into the future a bit, how politics will keep shaping our world. So, get ready for some genuine insights, maybe a few aha moments for you listening.
Let's do it.
So to understand where we're headed, we really need to get a handle on where we've come from. How central have political developments actually been to human history?
Oh, absolutely central. I mean, if you zoom out, political developments are core to the rise and fall of, well, pretty much every civilization.
Right.
Think about ancient political systems, Athenian democracy, the Roman Republic, the incredibly elaborate Chinese imperial dynasties.
Okay.
They weren't just abstract ideas, they laid the foundations of governance.
Yeah.
They're what allowed societies to function, to grow, or sometimes, yeah, to crumble.
And it wasn't just happening in the West, right? We sometimes get a bit focused there.
That's such a crucial point. Yeah. Well, medieval Europe had its monarchies, feudal lords, theocratic rule. You had parallel developments happening all over the globe. Islamic empires developed sophisticated caliphates.
Right.
Kingdoms across Africa had their own complex governance structures. Powerful dynasties in Asia, like in China,
Okay.
they all had unique, often very long-lasting systems of rule. And these sometimes predated or ran alongside European models. It just shows the diversity of political evolution.
It feels like then came a really huge turning point, the Enlightenment. That period really shifted the conversation, didn't it?
It absolutely did. A massive shift. The 17th and 18th centuries, they just ignited these revolutionary ideas about liberty, individual rights, the whole concept of secular governance.
Moving away from divine right.
Exactly, moving away from just divine right. And this intellectual ferment led directly to massive political upheavals. The American Revolution in 1776,
Yeah.
the French Revolution, 1789, the Haitian Revolution, 1791.
Often overlooked that one.
So important. And these events, while distinct, they collectively challenge that idea of absolute power. They're pivotal in birthing modern constitutional states and, gradually weakening the grip of absolute monarchies across the world.
So, okay, that historical context really sets the stage.
Yeah.
But what actually drives these big developments? It feels like there isn't just one thing.
No, definitely not. There are multiple forces, and we can sort of categorize these catalysts to understand how change happens.
Okay.
First, you've got elections and democratic reforms. These are incredibly powerful for ideally peaceful transitions of power.
Right.
And they let institutions evolve. Think about how something like, say, changing to proportional representation or expanding voter rights to groups that were excluded, how that can fundamentally reshape a nation's political landscape over time.
And beyond just voting, what about the actual rule book, the foundational laws?
Absolutely vital. So the creation or amendment of constitutions and legal frameworks, this can literally redefine national identity, civil rights, how government is structured.
Like South Africa post-apartheid.
Exactly. That constitution was a deliberate, transformative political act. And then, of course, there's the power of the people, social movements and public protest.
Yeah.
I mean, think of the U.S. civil rights movement, labor unions, fighting for wages. These grassroots efforts push governments towards being more inclusive, towards justice. It's often that collective will, sometimes out on the streets, that forces political change.
It's not just people physically in the streets anymore, though. Technology seems to be playing such a direct role now.
Oh, without a doubt. Technological change, especially digital platforms, social media, It's transforming everything.
How so?
Well, it's how leaders campaign now, how citizens can mobilize almost instantly, how policy debates get shaped in real time.
But it's a double-edged sword, right?
Totally. It enables democratic engagement, but it can also fuel disinformation like wildfire. And we can't forget international relations.
Right, external forces.
Yeah. Global institutions, alliances, conflicts, they often ripple inward, influencing domestic politics. Think about the Cold War shaping proxy regimes.
Sure.
Or how wanting EU membership forces countries to make specific internal reforms.
And sadly, when things go wrong economically or conflicts erupt, those seem like powerful triggers too.
They absolutely are. Economic shifts like really bad inflation, high unemployment, or deep inequality. These are potent triggers for political unrest or demands for urgent reform.
History's full of that.
It really is.
Yeah.
Economic hardship very often leads to political upheaval. And unfortunately, war, conflict, and occupation are often the most destructive catalysts. They frequently just dismantle existing governments, leading to completely new regimes or political orders, often radically different.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's bring this right up to the present day. Are there big global patterns, maybe trends, in political development that really stand out today? Things shaping our world now?
Yeah, there are definitely, I'd say, 5 significant interconnected patterns we're seeing. First, democratization. We saw that huge wave, late 20th century, countries moving away from authoritarianism.
Right, Latin America, Eastern Europe.
Exactly. Latin America, Eastern Europe, parts of Africa and Asia too. Key moments like the fall of the Berlin Wall in '89, the end of apartheid in South Africa in '94, even the initial hope of the Arab Spring in the 2010s, they all point to this trend.
But it hasn't been a straight line forward, has it? Feels like we've seen some backtracking.
That's a critical observation.
Yes.
Alongside democratization, we've definitely witnessed an authoritarian resurgence in recent years.
What does that look like?
It's often called democratic backsliding. It can be subtle at first or return to more centralized control, chipping away at press freedom, weakening judicial independence.
Okay.
Countries like Hungary, Turkey, Russia are often mentioned as places where democratic norms have been eroding.
And what about the rise of these very charismatic, sometimes controversial leaders, the ones appealing directly to the public?
Yeah. That's directly tied to the third trend, the rise of populism and nationalism.
Okay.
This is a pattern where leaders sort of bypass traditional politics, appealing directly to the people against some perceived elite.
Right. You hear that language a lot.
Exactly. And it often involves rhetoric focused on anti-immigration, anti-globalization, or maybe culturally conservative themes. What's striking is how they often criticize the very institutions, the traditional parties, that underpin liberal democracies.
And how did these internal shifts affect things globally on the world stage?
Well, they're fueling major geopolitical realignments. That's the fourth trend. The rise of powers like China, the return of great power competition. It's fundamentally reshaping global alliances.
How so?
Nations are having to rethink long-standing military pacts, trade deals, diplomatic ties. You see new groups like the expanded BRICS challenging the old order represented by, say, NATO or ASEAN. It's a fluid situation.
Okay. And finally, there's a trend that personally gives me a bit of hope.
And that would likely be youth and digital engagement. Is that it?
That's the one.
Yeah, we're really seeing a younger generation using social media, not just, for fun, but as a potent tool.
To organize.
To organize, absolutely. To influence public opinion, coordinate protests, demand change. Think about climate strikes, movements for social justice. Digital platforms amplify these voices in ways that were impossible just a couple of decades back. It's got huge implications.
So we've talked about these big trends, but what does this actually look like on the ground? Can we dive into some specific real-world examples from the sources, see how these broad ideas play out?
Yeah, that's a vital question. How do these trends manifest differently? Let's take the United States.
Okay.
It has this long tradition of democratic institutions, right?
Yeah.
But it's grappling with really significant challenges today. Intense political polarization, the whole controversy around gerrymandering, ongoing debates about voting rights, the role and power of the judiciary.
New court, yeah.
Exactly. Recent developments include huge debates over the Electoral College, the influence of the Supreme Court, and of course, major social movements like Black Lives Matter that have really shifted the national conversation.
And then, for a complete contrast, what about somewhere like China?
A stark contrast, yes. China operates as an authoritarian single-party state, ruled by the Chinese Communist Party.
And recent developments there.
Pretty significant. The removal of presidential term limits for Xi Jinping, allowing him to potentially rule for life. A massive expansion of digital surveillance technology,
Worrying.
affecting needs everyone. And of course, major regional tensions around Hong Kong and Taiwan, which have global implications.
What about something more complex, like the European Union? It's not one country, but it's a massive political force.
The EU is a fascinating case study. It's a supranational body, meaning power is shared between member states and EU institutions. Incredibly complex governance.
And Brexit.
Brexit was a huge political turning point, yeah. The UK leaving really challenged the whole project of European integration. And the EU still faces ongoing struggles over things like a common migration policy, hitting ambitious climate goals, and ensuring rule of law compliance among its members.
Okay. And for countries maybe outside these big power blocks,
Yeah.
say in the global south.
Right. Many countries across Africa, Latin America, South Asia, they're undergoing really profound, sometimes quite volatile political transitions.
Mixed results.
Very mixed. Some are moving towards stronger democracies, which is encouraging, but others, unfortunately, are experiencing military coups or prolonged instability. Think of Mali, Myanmar, recently tragic examples.
And the Middle East.
Yeah, if we connect this to the Middle East, the political shifts after the Arab Spring, again, very mixed outcomes. Tunisia did transition to democracy, at least for a while.
Yeah.
But Syria tragically descended into a brutal civil war, and Egypt eventually saw a return to military-backed rule. It just shows how unpredictable these developments can be.
So beyond the big events in specific countries, what about the institutions inside a country? The kind of the scaffolding itself. How do they shape or reflect political development?
That's a great way to put it, the scaffolding. And what's fascinating is how these institutions aren't static at all. They're incredibly dynamic, they evolve.
Your parliaments?
Exactly. Parliaments and legislatures, for instance. They're constantly being reshaped by electoral reforms, by shifts in who gets represented, even by changes in parliamentary rules and procedures.
They adapt over time.
They have to. Think about how the British Parliament evolved over centuries, or how adopting proportional representation somewhere totally changes whose voice gets heard in the legislature.
And the courts?
Mm-hmm.
The media?
Same story. Judiciaries can see their power expand or shrink based on constitutional changes, political will. You know, the U.S. Supreme Court's role in social policy is a huge example recently.
Mm-hmm.
And the media and civil society, they play these crucial watchdog roles, holding governments accountable, informing the public, and they're constantly adapting, especially with new technology.
Right.
Even political parties themselves aren't fixed. They transform. Ideologies shift. Public support waxes and wanes. New social issues force them to adapt. They reflect the political landscape as much as they shape it.
Okay, so after discussing all this, history, drivers, trends, institutions, what does it all actually mean for you listening, for society? What are the ultimate effects of these political developments?
Well, if political development goes well, if it's managed effectively, the positive outcomes can be really profound.
Like what?
Enhanced civil liberties, much broader political participation, leading to governments that are actually more responsive and transparent.
Yeah.
This often helps foster economic growth because you have a more stable political climate. And crucially, it strengthens the rule of law and the integrity of institutions, builds trust.
But when political development gets stuck or goes badly wrong, the result can be pretty grim.
Indeed. The negative outcomes are stark, and they can be devastating for ordinary people. Increased polarization, social unrest, a slide towards authoritarianism, the erosion of basic civil liberties,
Right.
rampant corruption that just rots democratic norms from the inside. And in the worst cases, you get actual violence, even civil war when grievances aren't addressed. The stakes are incredibly high.
So if the stakes are that high, how do we even know how a country's political system is doing?
Yeah.
Can we measure this stuff objectively? Gauge the political health?
That's a really important question. How do we assess progress or decline beyond just anecdotes or headlines? And yes, there are several key indicators that experts use.
Okay.
They try to measure how free, fair, and effective political systems are. You've got things like the Democracy Index from the Economist Intelligence Unit,
Heard of that one.
Freedom House scores, which look closely at political rights and civil liberties. There's Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index, measuring perceived public sector corruption.
Yes.
And the World Governance Indicators, WGI, from the World Bank. covering things like government effectiveness, rule of law, regulatory quality. They give us a more quantitative lens, help compare across countries and over time.
Okay, let's look ahead then. Crystal ball time? Maybe.
Yeah.
What are the really big forces likely to shape political development in the coming years? What should we anticipate?
Well, we can definitely see several critical areas emerging. Artificial intelligence and governance, that's going to be huge.
Also, good or bad?
Both, potentially. AI could offer amazing tools for managing data, improving public services, or if it's unchecked, it carries this massive risk of enabling unprecedented authoritarian surveillance and control.
Right, double-edged sword again.
Exactly. Then there's climate politics. This is going to test political systems like never before.
In what way?
Their ability to respond to the climate crisis, to ensure climate justice, to manage these really complex transitions to new energy sources, it demands huge political will and cooperation. And as populations shift globally, you'll see intensifying debates about nationalism, multiculturalism, inclusion, leading to complex global migration and identity politics that will challenge borders and societal norms.
And what about the divisions within societies?
Yeah.
The polarization we talked about.
That brings us right back to political polarization.
Yeah.
Echo chambers, the spread of disinformation, the sort of tribal politics. It could continue to fracture societies. Unless it's actively addressed, through things like media literacy, civic education, maybe meaningful political reforms. However, I do think youth in the future hold real promise here.
How so?
Well, with increasing digital awareness, global connections, better access to education, young people are positioned to play a really crucial role, demanding climate justice, demanding equality, pushing for democratic renewal. I think that's a powerful force for the future.
So when we wrap this all up, what's the big takeaway? Political developments.
Yeah.
They're not just for textbooks or politicians.
Not at all.
As we've seen in this deep dive, they feel like the very lifeblood of societies, constantly shifting, evolving under the surface.
Absolutely. If you connect it to the bigger picture, they show how power is gained, how it's used, how it's challenged, and they fundamentally shape the quality of life for, well, billions of people globally.
Yeah.
Whether it's through peaceful elections or massive public protests or even those quiet legislative reforms we don't always notice, these developments are always in motion, shaping the world you live in.
And with the world becoming more interconnected, but also somehow more divided in some ways, an informed and engaged citizenry like you listening feels absolutely essential.
It really does.
We hope this deep dive has given you some maybe surprising facts, some new insights into this constant dynamic evolution of our political world.
And perhaps this leaves us with a provocative question for you to think about. In this era of really rapid change, shifting power, how might your deeper understanding of political developments empower you? Empower you to engage with, maybe even influence how nations are shaped, hopefully towards greater justice, stability, and collective progress.